Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Perfect World based on novel. So let's start. Reincarnation disc. Was it refined by this person? It was obvious that Shahao really was stupefied, staring blankly. The owner of the higher realm's supreme treasure was here, making him feel a bit dazzled, as if everything was too unreal. Those things, those chaotic supreme treasures, which one of them didn't have tremendous origins? All of them had shocking pasts, every single one of them an irreproducible legend. Today, he saw the master himself. It was as if he was dreaming. Six Tao Reincarnation's immortal king is still researching his own great Tao. His ideal is too great, unknown when it will truly be implemented. The Phoenix girl said softly. He'll definitely be able to do it. Six Tao Reincarnation's immortal king is a stunning and shocking figure, incredibly valiant. Since he said he was going to reincarnation, he will definitely succeed. The young lady who carried the white Chiline blinked her large eyes, a look of adoration covering her face. Even the Chiline child in her arms similar blinked its large eyes, its two forelimbs moving together, looking like it was bowing with hands in front of it, expressing its acknowledgement. Six Tao Reincarnation's immortal king's talents are endless, not inferior to without end great one. There should be a day when he succeeds. The young man, with the radiant immortal gold sword on his back said. Sigh, the reincarnation disc he refined himself is already in pieces, broken through his research. I truly fear that he might be too reckless, throwing his own life away as well. Someone said quietly from the side, full of worry. When Shahao heard their conversation, his mind rose and fell violently. This was too shocking. Someone was researching reincarnation, even though there was none in this world. Regardless, by coming here today, even if he didn't obtain anything, these inside details he learned about were already enough. Raging flames overflowed, the great sun in the heavenly dome fell with a loud rumbling sound, flying towards the southern sea-purple bamboo forest. The radiance was too bright, the shining seawater starting to violently evaporate, about to dry up. You old thing, existing as long as the world, already living for such a long time, yet still naughty and mischievous like a child, playing these types of tricks. Someone in the purple bamboo forest said with a smile. Great laughter sounded from above. That golden sun turned into a golden crow, retracting all of the heat, flying over from the void, finally turning into a golden-robed elder. Look, now that you came, the sky has no one to watch over it, the world becoming dark, becoming night. Someone complained. No harm. This old golden crow pointed with his hand, and then golden light flew up towards the sky, producing a brilliant sun that illuminated all things once more. This was a world-shocking divine ability. A finger pointed out, creating a sun. This type of method made Shahao feel a bit stunned, unable to say anything anymore. A group of youngsters grouped up together, discussing natural laws and Tao. Shahao discovered with shock that he was a bit like a cultivation good-for-nothing, unable to understand what they were talking about. The system was different. Aside from those secret techniques that were occasionally mentioned, when the paths that had to be taken were discussed, it was incompatible with what he grasped. These individuals' cultivation required immortal seeds, merging them into their bodies, thus starting their road of cultivation. Tao brother, why aren't you saying anything? The youngster with the radiant immortal sword on his back asked. Shahao laughed bitterly, saying, my strength is meager, it is good just to be able to listen here. Now, he also finally understood why Willow Deity's method and Vicious Ten's methods were all precious techniques, difficult to leave the concrete cultivation path behind. It was because the cultivation of the world Shahao resided in was too different. Willow Deity and the others are comparatively better off, experiencing two great eras, long realizing a middle path, assimilating their methods into the world we live in, while these people's inheritances are too complex and difficult to understand. Shahao sighed. Without truly learning these people's methods, it was impossible for him to blend in, let alone effectively engaging in the discussion. Tao brother is too modest. I saw that you had immortal Tao energy, long achieving great cultivation. How can you speak like this? The young man, with the radiant immortal gold sword on his back said, moreover sincerely asking for advice. Even though the identities of the people here were extraordinary, the most powerful elites of different clans, they were all amiable, with no arrogant individuals, let alone anyone looking down on another. Shahao sensed the different atmosphere. These people were all modest, this event purely an exchange of information and learning from each other. My path is a bit special. Xiahao said. Hee, let's compete a bit, see who is stronger. The young lady carrying the little white Chilean said. Good, let's observe and learn from this. Exactly, a few great figures will discuss the Tao soon. We should use this time to exchange pointers. The two of you should be careful not to overdo it, but it is best if we don't waste time either. The group of people were all expectant, urging them to take action. All right then. That young lady joyously agreed. Xiahao thought for a bit, but didn't hesitate either, walking forward to exchange moves with her. The young lady tapped into the air, her finger shining, a seed flying out, germinating in the void, releasing an ancient and mysterious aura. Yi? Xiahao was shocked. The other party's enlightenment methods really were a bit different, not a true plant seed, but a Tao seed, evolving and absorbing the strength of the void, then releasing great Tao energy. Kai. He released a streak of lightning, simple and direct. However, that young lady's Tao seed was quite special, directly blossoming, producing flowers and fruits, then becoming a pagoda body, releasing a vague ringing sound, scattering the lightning. Again. Xiahao was shocked. Just now, he didn't use too much force, so now, he increased the strength a bit. When he took action again, large amounts of electrical arcs flew out, carrying stars one after another, formed from lightning, the power unordinary. Why do you attach so much importance to techniques, neglecting the great Tao's essence? That young lady was confused. She took action again, reaching out a finger again. An expanse of flowing light shot out, condensing into an immortal seed. Then, it blossomed there again, producing fruits. It was like a plant, producing a bell-shaped fruit. Dang. The bell released a long and drawn-out ringing sound. Time became unstable around it, directly interfering with the lightning, guiding it into these streams of chaotic time. Xiahao was extremely shocked. He finally understood what that young lady meant. The other party didn't attack from a method perspective, but rather directly moved the great Tao. Was this immortal ancient system? From the most fundamental Tao, lacking changes, simple and direct. Meanwhile, in this era, normally, everything always began from techniques and then traced back to the roots, ultimately touching upon the great Tao, but the path was entirely different, the power of precious techniques enormous and boundless. The so-called precious techniques were the Tao derived to the limit, changing the Tao for one's own use, a re-emergence, a type of transformation. Meanwhile, immortal ancient's path was to directly take action from the great Tao, the power strong, but lacking a few changes. Of course, this was what he discovered through forcefully comparing the differences. In reality, these were two different systems with many differences. There was no way Xiahao could understand that much in such a short amount of time. Interesting, Tao brother, the Tao methods you use are actually formed from this type of strange patterns, different from the Tao symbols we use, quite enlightening. May I ask you for more guidance? Someone on the side spoke up, the young man, with the radiant immortal gold sword on his back stepping forward, unable to stop himself from exchanging pointers with Xiahao. Your symbols are all quite special. I feel like it is the foundational symbols carved from heaven and earth, not special methods that can't be leaked out, right? Xiahao asked. That's right, one needs an immortal seed inheritance. Could it be that Tao brothers' natural laws are different? Then, the young man, who held the radiant immortal gold sword exchanged pointers with Xiahao, both sides' Tao laws clashing. It was quite peaceful without life and death dangers, all done with propriety. You cultivated 3 strands of immortal energy. The Phoenix girl was shocked. 3 strands of immortal energy, this triggered the shock of everyone present. In all of the peers they knew, creatures with this level of accomplishment were exceedingly rare. However, even though Xiahao cultivated 3 strands of immortal energy, it still didn't create enormous waves. It was because there were also others like this here. This was the first time Xiahao felt that the people here were extraordinary, too powerful. Moreover, he felt that the Phoenix girl was also unordinary, as if she also cultivated 3 strands of immortal energy. The two of them exchanged pointers. Xiahao could vaguely pry into the heavenly Phoenix precious techniques, profound mysteries from the simple and ancient Tao symbols of her immortal seed, leaving him greatly shocked. Then, Xiahao confirmed that the Phoenix girl cultivated 3 strands of immortal energy, his intuition not wrong. You also have 3 strands of immortal energy? Xiahao asked. I previously found a fragment of nascent cosmos, refining it into my body, turning it into my immortal seed, so cultivating 3 strands of immortal energy was naturally not an issue. However, you are quite surprising, I am unable to see through you," the Phoenix girl said. When Shahao heard this, he was greatly shaken. He thought back to some matters in Immortal Ancient, the little immortal king the white tortoise carrying Immortal had mentioned in Immortal Medicine Garden. In fact, when Shahao cultivated there in seclusion, he also saw little immortal king's cultivation process. As long as one cultivated 2 strands of immortal energy, the 3rd strand of immortal energy would succeed through lightning tribulation. At that time, the path little immortal king walked was the same as Shahao, the most difficult path, the one that left one in despair, failing at the last moment. During that process, little immortal king had mentioned that there were those who used the world tree as immortal seeds, using nascent cosmos as immortal seeds, all of them cultivating 3 strands of immortal energy. Now, Shahao unexpectedly saw a living example, this Phoenix girl, someone who refined a part of the cosmos in its embryonic state, seeing it with his own eyes. Is this the one little immortal king spoke of? Or is it someone else who treaded on the same path? Shahao was a bit confused. The atmosphere that followed was extremely friendly. Shahao exchanged pointers with them, competed, chatted about different topics. Only, their systems were different, so it was difficult to truly understand the other party's profound mysteries. However, verifying and confirming things like this was still quite eye-opening. It was clear that this was a joyous time. There were so many experts and people here, yet it was extremely peaceful, no disputes, only discussion. Shahao conversed with them, all of them finding each other pleasant to talk to, their interactions cheerful. "Yi, why aren't the great figures giving a lecture yet?" Someone suddenly realized. "Haha, we saw how you all were in high spirits, discussing in such a harmonious manner, so we gave you all a bit more time to interact with each other. Feel free to continue the exchange," an elder in the distance said while laughing. Then, an elder told them that they could discuss the Tao as much as they wished, no need to worry about the issue of time. It was because several great figures were also pondering over some profound mysteries, quite engrossed in their discussions, needing time. Just like that, Shahao took up residence in the southern sea purple bamboo forest. A larger half of a month passed just like that. During this period of time, he became friends with many people, discussing many things joyously. "How come the great ones still haven't come?" some of them asked. "Wu, the great figures are discussing the great issue of time and reincarnation. Without end great one feels that he has peered into the river of history, seeing a corner of the future, his path still not complete. End isn't his perfect Tao, still needing the beginning. Meanwhile, 6 Tao reincarnations Immortal King is trying to deduce the feasibility of reincarnation in this world." This information was, without a doubt, shocking. End is not a complete Tao, needing the beginning. Could it be that without end great one is going to change your name? Haha, the atmosphere here was clearly good, even the younger generation daring to joke around with those great figures. Time passed by in a flash, several months now passed. Shahao's benefits were tremendous. He became good friends with some of them, for example, the Phoenix girl, the young man with the immortal sword on his back, as well as the young lady who carried the little Chilean and others. If he left like this, he felt a bit reluctant. "Sai, Tao brother, if we separate like this, with endless years passing between us, would you still remember us?" The young man, who carried the immortal gold sword spoke, carrying melancholy. "Right? Perhaps this will be our final meeting, thus forever unable to reunite. It truly is a bit regretful." The Phoenix girl mumbled, 3 strands of immortal Tao energy swirling around her. "Woo-woo, it truly makes one feel sorrow that we have to leave." The young lady who carried the little white Chilean sobbed. Shahao was shaken. What was going on? "You all know that I don't belong here. Or is it to say, you all don't belong here?" Shahao blurted out, not wishing to hide anything anymore. These people were all heroes, all supreme being heavenly talents, but Shahao felt as if they were a bit distant, as if they would disappear at any time. "You all," he couldn't help but cry out. It truly is sad, the Phoenix girl, young man, and young lady all sighed. The others walked over as well, patting Shahao's shoulder. "What exactly is going on? Can you all tell me?" Shahao asked with a loud voice. These people before him looked close, but were actually extremely far. Now that they had been with each other for several months, it was difficult for them to abandon each other. Shahao felt a wave of uncomfortable feeling, a type of sore feeling. He felt like they were going to separate, depart from each other, moreover an eternal parting. He would never be able to meet these people in this life, this world again. What was going on? He didn't know why. This was a wondrous immortal dwelling, right? Were these people real, or did he dream of returning to immortal ancient, an accidental encounter? Goodbye. Perhaps someday in the future, one of us would still be able to reunite with you in this roiling world of mortals. Even though this thought is rather ridiculous, there is always a trace of hope in the endless years, so who can say for sure? The young man with the radiant immortal gold sword said. He looked seriously at Shahao, and then he turned around, walking towards the depths of the island, his figure gradually becoming indistinct. We are also young supreme beings, not weaker than anyone. What a pity, we cannot truly reappear. We will scatter with the wind, watching your battles and brilliance from this world's dust. Another person walked over, giving Shahao his farewells. Live properly, work hard, don't let yourself fall in battle early. The Phoenix girl walked over as well, carrying a smile as well as reluctance, her eyes carrying a bit of tears. I feel so terrible. We really have to go, cannot meet again. The young lady who carried the little white Chileen said softly, extremely emotional. Shahao was stupefied. The ones before his eyes were all living people. After associating with them for several months, they already developed close relationships, sharing feelings. Were they really never going to meet again? What exactly was going on? He was a bit stunned, not understanding the situation. Please tell me, why is this? Shahao grabbed the Phoenix girl's arm and chased after her, grabbing the young man, who carried the radiant immortal gold sword, and then looked at that young lady. Look, they are here. The young man, who carried the radiant immortal gold sword on his back, pointed into the distant sky. There was a giant sinister eye that was larger than a mountain peak, opening in the void. In that direction, enormous bony outgrowths grew, hacking down from the heavens. There was grey mist there, surging over from the cosmos. In that instant, this peaceful and auspicious pure land was corrupted, becoming a deathly grey. Immediately afterwards, shouts of war shook the skies. A blood-colored scale descended, piercing through heaven and earth. With a pu sound, several young supreme beings were struck through, making them roar with anger. Magical force surged, yet they couldn't resist a single strike. Catcher. A black vine grass descended from the void, crushing mountains and rivers. Southern sea purple bamboo forest split apart, the jade sea rising. Several young supreme beings did everything they could to resist, but they were still destroyed. Shahao was quite close to some of them, exchanging pointers with them in these past few months, comparing and verifying with each other. They already shared deep feelings, yet they died just like that in the end. Ah! Shahao released a great roar, frantically attacking the skies. He was taking action, wishing to stop everything, wishing to redeem something. Hurry and take action, hurry and stop it. Shahao roared with anger. He looked towards the great figures in the immortal manner, turning his head there. However, immediately afterwards, his heart went cold. 6 Dao reincarnations. Immortal King had long used the reincarnation disc to fight intensely against a mysterious expert, as if a reincarnation of the world was taking place there, scenes overlaying on top of each other one after the other. In addition, without end Great One was also taking action, the great bell sound long and drawn out, breaking the river of time, interfering with the flow of time, making that place blurry. Wherever the bell waves passed, all living things were killed. However, there were still terrifying enemies that rushed over, not just one or two. They fought against him, blasting that great bell, making it tremble violently, continuously release ringing sounds. What was going on? Why did this type of battle suddenly happen? Shahao was confused, and he discovered that the attacks he released were useless, unable to change anything. He was like an outsider traveling between all different types of scenes. The scene was incredibly realistic, angry roars ringing until his ears were in pain. The tragic massacre made his blood surge, his mouth roaring endlessly. However, he was completely helpless, as if he was incompatible with this world, as if he was peeled away from that world. Not far out, the young lady who carried the little white Chileen was surrounded by a strand of grey mist. A scarlet pair of eyes lit up inside, attacking her viciously. Bloody light splashed outwards. Shahao's eyes were completely red. Even though this young lady was a bit mischievous and lively, she was extremely good and honest. She suffered a disaster just like that. He took action furiously, attacking viciously, but it didn't do anything, as if he was unrelated. Do you see? This is our conclusion. Goodbye, we might never meet again. When the grey mist scattered, that young lady's eyes lost spirit, her arms powerless. The little white Chilean she held whimpered, falling onto the ground. Why, tell me? Shahao's eyes were completely red, hot tears falling, staring at her, looking at all of these people he was now familiar with. Also you could see our situation, immortal ancients' cruelty. You have to prepare yourself. In the future, you will definitely fight them. The young lady spat out bits of blood from her mouth, speaking with difficulty. You all, Shahao's eyes went red, battle intent surging. He stared at the battlefield, it was just too bitter and miserable. The pure and holy immortal residence was dyed red in blood so quickly. We are unwilling to leave things like this too, someone sighed softly. This came from the mouth of a young supreme being, one of the few individuals with 3 strands of immortal energy. However, he still died in the end, killed here. Ha ha, ha ha ha, the young man, who carried the radiant immortal gold sword laughed loudly, his eyes carrying tears. The divine sword was already in his hand, intensely fighting, completely distressed as he said, immortal ancient great era is going to end, we really can't accept this. We haven't even grown up yet, unable to fight the intense battle with our seniors. You can see this for yourself. Are you still unconvinced? The Phoenix girl was downcast. She looked at Shahao, the 5-colored battle clothes on her body shining. 3 strands of immortal energy swirled about, doing everything she could to attack and resist the intruders. I have seen it. Is it because of the senior's power that created this miracle, allowing me to see this scene through endless time? Shahao gazed towards 6 Tao reincarnations immortal king, without end great one, understanding a bit. Correct. The Phoenix girl nodded. One of them touched upon reincarnation, while the other severed the flow of time. For things to end like this, they truly would find it hard to accept. No matter what, they had to leave later generations with some clues. That young lady released the little white Chilean, weakly speaking a few final sentences, and then ultimately falling, no longer releasing any life aura. This was an immortal dwelling in immortal ancient, as well as an extremely well-known battlefield. Back then, without end and 6 Tao reincarnations, immortal king used their power to pierce through endless years, blasting through the heavens to peer into the future, reflecting immortal ancients' past. The past was reflected, but I can converse with you all. Shahao felt broken-hearted, still not understanding. He looked at these people, who were dying one after another, all of them he had only just gotten to know. A few great figures with magical force that transcended past and present, cultivations impossible to appraise, built a small space, taking action in the past, dragging you in to personally see things. What? Shahao was shocked. This type of methods was impossible to imagine. Taking action from the past, dragging a present world person to immortal ancient great era. Whether it is real or fake, it can't change anything. You are only a witness, who just happened to step foot in these remains. Perhaps you saw many imprints, perhaps you truly arrived in our world, or maybe you are talking to us from endless time away. These were all things made possible through those great figures' methods. The Phoenix girl said, carrying a mournful expression. It was because her companions were becoming fewer and fewer, almost all falling. Shahao was stunned. What kind of methods were these? Had he stepped foot into a soul realm, speaking with remnant souls, or was he pulled into immortal ancient great era's final days through magical force, witnessing scenes after scenes as a bystander? He couldn't tell if this was true or false, because when he previously exchanged pointers with the people here, he could feel that they were quite real, with not even his heavenly eyes seeing anything unusual. Once one's cultivation reached a certain point, could they truly affect the future? Shahao didn't know. He was shaken up inwardly. At the same time, he also felt endless pain, watching as those he had gotten close to in these past few months fell one after another. He felt great pain inside. Even though he knew that they had long gone out of existence, falling during immortal ancients' final days, he still couldn't help but feel grief. It was because he had previously interacted with them, chatted and shared experiences. Many of them had already become his friends. This place was originally extremely peaceful, auspicious, the atmosphere joyous, but in the blink of an eye, there was this type of goodbyes, everything coming to an end. As he watched those people fall into pools of blood one after another, killed in battle, Shahao wanted to roar in grief, wished to go crazy. He tightly clenched his fists, eyes entirely red, carrying tears. He couldn't change anything, could only watch. Was this to allow him to understand the cruelty of the world a step earlier? How the future was going to be, how his present world friends were going to end up? Were they going to be killed in battle one after another? Even though they weren't people from the same world, Shahao still felt sore, heart aching. Watching these people die felt as if he was watching his friends in this era be killed in battle. Correct, even though he had only met them for a few months, even though this was all created by those great figures through sky-connecting magical force and cultivation, twisting the heaven and earth's regulations, it still was that realistic. We are parting here, immortal ancient, goodbye, my friends. Shahao watched as they fell down one after another, blood dyeing the battlefield, hot tears pouring down from his eyes. Even though they were separated by endless years, he still felt as if lost a part of his soul in that great era, accompanying them, buried along with them all. I was brought here to be with you all, taking care of each other. A part of my mind will remain here. This dream back to immortal ancient will stay and watch over immortal ancient. Shahao muttered, hot tears rolling down his cheeks. Us great ones are not as strong as we wished we were. Someone said softly, feeling incredibly downcast. In the distance, the great bell grew dim, the reassembled reincarnation disc also splitting apart. Did you only bring me alone here? Shahao asked. The phoenix girl was pierced by a blood feather, falling onto her back, weakly saying, there are others. The great ones are searching for hope, unknown how many people returned to this world as a dream. However, the great ones are about to fade away. We can never meet again. The young man holding the radiant immortal gold sword was disappointed. His body began to break apart. He gave Shahao a look, and then he completely withered away, blood splashing more than 10 feet into the air. When one's cultivation is powerful enough, it can affect the future. Then if I am strong enough, will I be able to create reincarnation to affect the past? Shahao raised his head into the sky and roared. He watched as the phoenix girl fell, watched as the young man holding the radiant immortal gold sword turned into a pool of blood and bone, watched as the sky turned a blood color, watched as the distant great bell became broken. He watched as the people he became close to in this world died. A great roar of despair sounded from his mouth. Not belonging to the present, not belonging to the past, a dream back to immortal ancient. Immortal ancient friends, I hope the day comes when we can meet again. He howled in sadness. Wind blew over, purple bamboo swaying about. These were ruins, the earth scorched black, as if it had experienced thunder and flames, soaked in blood. Shahao stood here without moving, his expression blank, but tears flowing down, still not having dried up. I actually cried. He said softly, rubbing the tears from his face, the tears still a bit warm. The people he met from that era all disappeared. The bamboo forest was there, but the jade sea had long dried up. Was this the southern sea purple bamboo forest from the past? Now, there was only an expanse of ordinary purple bamboo. They weren't tall, nor were they thick, completely different from the immortal ancient dream Shahao experienced. Was it a dream? But, it felt so real. Shahao felt his heart aching, the scene still playing before his eyes. Those friends he became well acquainted with collapsed into pools of blood one after another. This bloody scene was like a dream, yet why did he feel such pain? He saw with his own eyes as those friends he had talked with for several months collapsed, this type of feeling depressing and difficult to bear. Shahao couldn't hold back his urge to roar. Then he quickly wiped off the tears from his face. The road ahead still had to be taken, his head now suddenly raised again. Some things have already been said in that world, in that great era, in that dream, what could he do now? Only become stronger, transcend. Shahao calmly thought to himself here, and then he walked around this place, paying his final respects to this place. Dang. He used the heavenly eyes, seeing a piece of ruined steel. Even after all this time, it still didn't completely corrode, and there was still a sparkling white radiance flickering about. Shahao's pupils rapidly contracted, his eyes turning into two torches, blazing and penetrating. Radiant immortal gold. Now, only a piece was left that was less than 3 inches long, the bit of immortal gold that was mixed in not having corroded, still having a bit of white light swirling about it. Shahao's breathing was hurried. He caressed this broken sword, feeling a muffled pressure. He felt a wave of melancholy inside, truly wishing to spit out and scatter the clouds in the 9 heavens. That wasn't just a dream, it was real. This place really was Southern Sea Purple Bamboo Forest. There was a gathering of young supreme beings here in that world, and he had previously witnessed it. Shahao's heavenly eyes were intimidating. He also obtained a few more discoveries, unearthing a few ruined bones. In that instant, his hot blood immediately surged, his body shaking greatly. It was a strange bone that flickered with 5-colored luster. Even though it had already grown dim, it still carried a familiar aura. It belonged to that Phoenix girl. He had previously exchanged pointers and chatted with her. That type of feeling couldn't be mistaken. This was undoubtedly a bloody tragedy. Shahal was trembling slightly. Everything was real. He dug out 2 graves here, burying the ruined sword, burying the phoenix bone, and then silently offered his prayers. He then suddenly turned around, walking out with large steps. Dream back to immortal ancient, Shahal said softly. He wanted to laugh, yet tears flowed out. Those friends, even though they were separated by endless years, were all buried here. Frustration, disappointment, sadness, grief, along the way, Shahal remained silent. Even if he was tens of thousands of li away from that place, his heart still felt extremely uncomfortable. Why did he have this type of experience? They were clearly separated by a great era, endless years between them, yet he still got to know a group of friends. However, it was extremely cruel. He could only watch as they died, their blood dyeing the great earth red. This was something that would continue to gnaw at his mind. Shahal's chest rose and fell greatly. He confirmed that not much time had passed in the outside world, yet he stayed in that world for a long time. Have to leave, the road ahead is still long. I want to see what kind of background those enemies have, what is so special about them. Shahal said. A dream back to immortal ancient, he saw the miserableness of the Great War, yet was unable to truly fight against the enemy. It was because that grey mist descended from outer space, down from the cosmos, blocking out everything. I actually became friends with a group of people, yet could only watch them die. Several days passed. Shahal was already far away from that place, yet his heart couldn't calm down. Whenever he thought back to it, he would always feel a burning pain, his eyes turning sore. However, he wasn't an indecisive person, soon after adjusting his mood. Even if a group of friends had just died, he still quickly recovered his mental state. Immersing oneself too heavily in this matter wouldn't bring any benefits, it couldn't change anything. What he had to do was quickly rise up and become stronger. One day, he would encounter that group of enemies. When that time truly came, it would be his turn to take action and fight. When that time came, it would also be the time for him to get revenge for his friends. Kai. That day, when Shahal hurried ahead, above a rotting stone mountain, a tattered beast skin shone, releasing endless golden needles. They were too fast, exceeding his imagination. Pu. In the surroundings, a group of large mountains were blasted full of holes before collapsing. Shahal broke out in cold sweat, because those so-called golden needles were all beast skin hair, more formidable than any secret treasure. They were just too terrifying. What kind of weapon was this? Shahal shivered inwardly. This all happened too abruptly. If he was just a step late just now, he would have been pierced. He was positive that not even a group of heavenly deities could block this attack, they would instead be blasted into sieves. It was to the extent where he felt that not even sect masters could face it head-on. Meanwhile, the source of the danger was just a piece of beast skin on a tattered rock. It was dull and lightless, as if it had been ravaged by wind and rain, the fur about to completely fall off. Just now, he just happened to be here when it erupted. Shahal was stunned. That beast skin was too ordinary looking, as if a common beast left it behind, not having anything unique about it. A great gust of wind blew over, moving that beast skin, causing it to fly out. Was this how it was blown here? What a coincidence. This left him stunned. When it was flying through the air, there was beast fur that came off, turning into golden needles. They tore through everything in an unstoppable manner, making one's mind tremble. The great earth, mountain peaks, void, heavenly dome, were all cracking apart from its fur. It was just this terrifying. Shahal was stupefied, quickly moving out of the way, not being injured by the beast fur that descended, let alone wishing to touch that beast skin. The power of this thing was too great. Right now, he finally understood that there were too many things that couldn't be understood in the vast uninhabited region depths. For example, this piece of tattered beast skin alone had world-shaking power. Just what kind of creature did this come off of? If it was used like a weapon, it would truly be terrifying. Soon after, he realized that this was most likely a piece of skin that came off an unmatched figure. If he thought about it carefully, a great battle had previously happened here during immortal ancient great era, so it might even be an ancient artifact from the past. This proved even further that it was precious and powerful. Shahal wanted to subdue that beast skin, but after several attempts, he discovered that he couldn't obtain it at all. That crazy wind swept it into the mountain forest depths. In fact, Shahao even began to suspect that the crazy wind was actually the result of the beast skin's divine might. As Shahao approached, he became convinced that it wasn't mountain wind, but rather the beast skin itself that produced the great wind, moving itself in flight. After understanding these circumstances, he decisively withdrew, not following it, his body breaking out in cold sweat. How dangerous! If he truly ended up facing it, he would undoubtedly die. He now understood a bit why those old sect masters died in this region. Just following these sinister items would already be enough to cause their deaths. This beast skin was too powerful, its power impossible to surmise. Just how powerful was the body of the creature that it came from? Perhaps an immortal king, right? Shahao carried a mind full of worries as he continued forward. When he passed by a hilly region, he stopped. This place was quite unique. Then, his fine hairs all stood on end, he frantically sped along. It was because those hills could move, all of them ancient tombs dripping with dark red blood. Moreover, these ancient tombs surged over, drowning Shahao beneath, wishing to suppress and devour him. It was strange after all. The string of events made him feel the dangers of this forbidden region more and more. When he turned around again, he discovered that here were several thousand skeletal remains laying across the ground. It was because after the ancient tomb moved, the skeletal remains that were revealed all belonged to the 3,000 province's young talents. So many people died here, unable to survive. Shahao felt more and more that this boundless restricted region had too many dangers. He had to stay vigilant at all times, the slightest carelessness would result in eternal damnation. Ever since he set out from Xing province until now, a month had already passed, yet he still never saw the so-called ancient city. A lightning struck a divine tree. Shahao was shocked. Along the way, he saw a divine tree that, even though it was struck by lightning, entirely scorched black, it still towered without falling. Moreover, there was vague light flickering about on the tree trunk. This was already a heavenly treasure, exceptional material for refining lightning Dao precious artifacts. However, when Shahao approached, his mind was suddenly startled. He quickly ran, not daring to approach. Soon after, he tried to activate a magical artifact to make contact with that ancient tree. Hong! The void within a range of 100 li exploded. As for the Great Earth, there was even less of a need to talk about it, completely collapsing. That area became an enormous black abyss, even the heavenly dome falling to ruin. What kind of blasted tree is this? What kind of lightning does it contain? Shahao was stupefied. At the same time, he felt a chill run down from head to toe. That was power that could kill sect masters. Shahao carried cold intent, quickly leaving, continuing on his way. 2 months later, he encountered a group of troops, every single one of them dressed in metal clothes, their appearances lofty and silent. They were clearly veteran experts. These people rode vicious beasts, mounted vicious birds, all of them powerful, possessing a wave of valiant aura. The weakest were at the true deity realm, among them no lack of heavenly deities. Who are you? Someone from the other side shouted. I am a seeker of the Tao, also an explorer headed to the Forbidden Region's ancient city. Shahao replied. He was also quite curious where these people came from. Could it be that he wasn't far from that ancient city? You came searching for the ancient city. Entered the great wilderness alone, heading here from the 3,000 provinces. Someone asked in shock. Yes, I am a seeker of the Tao, this path is part of my personal refinement through flames. Shahao replied with a smile. Wu, the ancient city you speak of is not far, we come precisely from there, in charge of investigating the surrounding situation. One of them said. Then, these mounts moved forward. Kai. Suddenly, the one in the lead took action, directly activating a secret treasure to suppress Shahao. At the same time, dazzling radiance rushed into the heavens, illuminating this heaven and earth. Someone issued a signal to request assistance. Kill. Since the other party wished to kill him, Shahao naturally wouldn't act polite. When he raised his hand, sword radiance flew out like rainbows, shooting in all directions. As a result, several of them lost their lives in that instant. However, like Death Knights not fearing death, the ones who survived rushed over to attack again. What kind of background do you all really have? Shahao asked. At the same time, he sensed a strange aura. Pu. Shahao didn't hesitate, killing the remaining people. At this time, he encountered a group of black-clothed individuals riding on blood-colored ancient beasts, pouring over like a flood. Every single person here was unexpectedly at the heavenly deity realm. Kill him. Someone pointed at Shahao. Shahao didn't understand. Wasn't this place not that far from the ancient city? Why did these people take action to deal with him? Their strength was great, aura cold, clearly crawled out from a mountain of corpses, a sea of blood. Part 1 end here.